You know, the Palm Beach Outlet Malls pays about $1 million a year in ad valorem taxes. Some of the new developments are going to come in with $2 million in ad valorem taxes. That's how we're going to get the money we need to make sure that we can do the work that we have to do. We have an amazing team in the city that I am incredibly proud of having developed. Nobody who was there in 2011 is still there. My top leadership has completely turned over. They are competent and excellent people.
Mayor, let's begin with you on this one. It's a back of the book question, but it follows on to the question about police services. This is from somebody in this audience. Should the city of West Palm Beach consider incorporating our police department, this questioner asked, into the sheriff's office? Should we consider letting the county take over our fire department? Mayor, begin with you.
No, and nor should we privatize our water.
Commissioner?
Well, 4 years ago, the mayor said she would look at taking our police department and joining with the sheriff's office. I thought that was a bad idea then. I still do. That's actually in writing. I got it. And the same with our men and women in our fire department. No, I love them. They are awesome. Awesome. I also have never, ever said anything about privatizing our water. Really, we have, though, under this mayor, privatized our CRA, and it was a good thing to do. We actually brought in a management company to run our golf course, and that was a good thing to do. So am I open to looking at other ways to provide the city services, municipal services? Yes. Would I ever privatize or outsource them? Never.
Oh gosh, Commissioner.
Permission, brief rebuttals from both gentlemen. 30-second rebuttal from the mayor.
I'm shocked that you say that. We have tape from several commission meetings where you have talked about privatizing water. As a matter of fact, you and Commissioner Materio went to the ECR board to convince them to privatize the ECR. So I don't know what you remember or don't remember.
And what about your alleged memo from 4 years ago about
That's right.
discussing privatizing?
I did.
Or excuse me, moving over to the
I did
PSL.
say I would look into police and fire. I've looked into it. It doesn't work. It's costly, and I wouldn't do it.
Thank you. 30 seconds for you, Commissioner, then we'll move on to the next question.
Okay, and maybe it's just that you're not understanding what I'm saying, but I'll say it again. Because we want to look at a different way to manage our operations, it's not the same thing as privatizing. Privatizing means I am selling my water system to a private company, and they will give us water, and they will set the rates. I have never had that discussion. We can roll tape.
What about Poseidon? Isn't that a private company?
Can I answer that? Private companies build buildings. That doesn't mean we privatize anything.
So you're saying you private infrastructure but city workers?
No. We have private companies that do all kinds of things for the public sector.
How's that not privatizing?
Okay. I'll give you an example. We have this municipal golf course, Michael, and for years it was being managed by a group of residents, volunteers. We love them, but it wasn't being operated the way we expected it to be. We wanted children, women, black folks to be able to go out to their municipal golf course. So what we did is we hired.
Quiet, please. Quiet, please.
Well, I can't say black folks. They didn't like them at the golf course then. They do now.
Quiet, please.
Anyway.
Yes, and
Anyway.
your rebuttal is.
You wanted me to
Yes,
answer
go
the
ahead.
question?
Go ahead.
So what we did is we hired a management company to manage the golf course for us. We serve as the golf commission today. We set the rates, we set the policies, and we set the direction. They are there, and in fact, when we did it, every single employee stayed employed and then went to work for the management company. That's not privatizing, that is finding a collaboration that works to provide the municipal service.
Mayor, the same question put to you as we continue the privatization or lack therein debate, and then we'll move on to another question. 90 seconds for the mayor. Correct. Well, I think let's follow up on this privatization debate, which will lead us into one of the questions presented to you, but we'll get to that about water and perhaps the need to do something given some of the recent events we've had happen at our water plants. But continue on. You've heard what she said.
Sure.
Your 90-second response.
Sure. Well, I'm just really pleased that we're working in the direction that we're working. Our city commission made a really good decision to improve our existing water plant using state-of-the-art technology that will clean our water, ultraviolet technology. We're able to do it by paying for it through reserves and not raising your water bill. All the other options that were presented would have meant an increase in your water bill. All the other options supported by my opponent would have meant an increase in your in your bill. She voted against this option that we are able to pay for and not increase your bill, and it will give us the water protection that we need. It will satisfy the health department, and it will do what we need it to do.
We'll move on to some other questions. Of course, you will always have the luxury of, I see you staring at intertwining comments about the previous one, as sometimes happens, but we're going to move on. Mayor, the question to you, there's already, as I said at the outset, criticism, sites set up criticizing your record, and I want you to talk about at least one of the areas where you're criticized. It says, critics say you made promises in 2011 that you've not kept to the African American community. Among them, critics say establishing a job training center in the Northwestern neighborhood, establishing and funding a revolving loan program to foster small business growth, and enacting a minority business ordinance among the critiques and criticism. Your response?
Well, you know, it's always easy to criticize, and I guess what I say is easy to rock the boat. It's not that. It's a bigger challenge to steer the boat.
Are these accurate, though? Just to be clear to the specific complaints, yes or no? Are these accurate?
We have just passed a small business ordinance that will allow level playing field for small and minority businesses. We are embarking on a disparity study. We have lowered the bonding requirements for small businesses. We have done workshops for small businesses to help them understand how to navigate government procurement. We have supported something called a matchmaker program that the county runs, where we bring small and minority-owned businesses together with employers. We have held job fairs. We have had an extensive outreach when the mall was being open to minority businesses, small and minority businesses. We are, our department, procurement department, is led by an expert in the area, and we are doing everything we can to make sure that there's a level playing field.
Commissioner?
Well, that really didn't answer the question, and I know the question because the community has asked me those exact same questions. They came forward. Now remember, 38% of our city are African American, right? And they want their voice to be heard, and they deserve to be heard. And not just placated when we're running for re-election or election, but seriously doing the work. So they laid out the things that were important to them, and some of them that Michael just rattled off are a portion of what was important. The disparity study, and without going into the weeds on this, is something that legally we need to do when we want to make sure, you know, government is sometimes the great equalizer. We have the ability to make sure everybody, not just one group that always gets the business, but that everybody has an opportunity to step up and get a piece of the pie in West Palm Beach. Without a disparity study, the federal government does not allow us to set those goals. We fought for it, she has fought against it, and for the life of me, even after making that promise in 2011, I cannot imagine why she has not supported it. Commissioner Materio and I have strongly, and I disagreed with the procurement official, who is a fine gentleman, but was not getting the job done, the job that we promised, and she promised would get done.
I've allowed rebuttals on the other side, 30-second rebuttal from the mayor.
I am not against it, was not against a disparity study. I don't need a disparity study to tell me that where there's disparate treatment of small and minority-owned businesses. What we need are programs to address that. I just want to tell you that we have 1,500 employees in our city. 520 of them are African American. 216 are Hispanic. That makes almost half of the people who work in our city minorities. We're almost a minority-majority city. We have, can we be better? Absolutely. Can we do things better?
Mayor,
Can we do,
time.
I'm sorry.
Next question begins.
I don't get to, okay.
Let's move on. She had her rebuttal as you've had some of yours. Commissioner, we'll start this one with you. I want to move on to a few issues, then get to the topic you two seemed eager to talk about, lobbyist influence or lack therein. But we'll begin. We've got about a half hour left, by the way, and I do want to say I moderate panels all the time. This is one of the most thoughtful, attentive audiences I've ever seen. And in the last 10 or 15 minutes, we're going to get specifically to some of you, I believe, standing up, perhaps, is that correct, sir? To ask a few questions. So thank you. We'll go for about another half hour before we wrap. Baseball stadium. Will spring training baseball come here? What are the costs to the cities and the concerns? Is there any downside cost-wise? And I should note that local lawmakers seem to be saying you'd withdraw your support for the spring training site if any environmental study should show it might hurt our drinking water supply. That study not yet finished, but assuming that that study is one that you could agree with, will baseball come here, and what's the upside downside cost for the city, if any?
I have been an early on champion and supporter of baseball. I grew up here, and we had baseball in this community. We had the Braves and the Expos, and I loved it, and then we lost them. So the ability to bring baseball back to West Palm, I think, is a very good move. It's good for the city, and it's good for the greater community. Unfortunately, the mayor didn't see it that way all through it. What I thought was important, we promised a long time ago a regional park for the western communities. And when I say western communities, it's not just the gated communities. We have families and people who live along Haverhill and along Military that don't have a park. I have parks. I live in the south end of the city, and I have Phipps Park, and I have South Olive, and Dreer Park, and a golf course. They don't have that out here. We promised it to them, and we promised it to them on the site that we're looking at for baseball. So I said, yes, I would support baseball, but they would have to build a lovely regional park that we promised for the residents who can't afford to live behind the gates out here, but deserve, their families, their children, their individuals deserve a great park. Now, not if it encroached on our water catchment area. We have plenty of land to do both without encroaching on the water catchment area.
Mayor, same question. There has been some criticism or misunderstanding, whichever way you might see it, that you've been on both sides of the baseball issue. Fundamentally, do you support the stadium now, and talk about any concerns about cost and making sure that's not a burden for taxpayers? Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Baseball came and wanted us to give, and the county, because the county will own the land, wanted us to give them 160 acres of taxpayer-owned land. I refused to give the land without some concession from the county. And that was, I wanted to swap the 160 acres for about a 2-acre parcel in our downtown that was ripe for development. The county refused. I said, okay, too bad, we'll find somebody else for this land. I wasn't gonna give it away. I was gonna find another developer for this land. Finally, the county decided that they wanted baseball and that they would be willing to swap the land. I got what I wanted. I got the land swapped. I was a negotiator in this. You didn't want me to give away your 160 acres, did you? Did you want me to give your land away without getting something in return? I didn't. I waited until we got something in return. Now, in order to get the baseball stadium and the park built, we have to change the boundaries, change the buffer at the small portion of the canal. It will be changed to 125 feet, bigger than the buffer of the canal east of it. The water will be, it's a dump. The dump will be cleaned up. Water is going to be routed into the lake. No water will flow into the canal. It's going to be better environmentally. We will have an environmental study. If the environmental study comes back, we'll remove the bill.
Let's talk a little bit about
Can I get my rebuttal, Michael?
Come on.
30-second rebuttal.
Thank you. I actually.
How can I resist?
The land that we're talking about is a dump. It's not the household garbage variety, but it's not attractive, and it's going to be expensive to clean up. We were never going to be able to get residential out there. What I wanted to fight for, and I still am going to fight for, is to have that park that we promised. The 2 acres in the downtown would be great, but not more important than bringing to families who do not have anything. No community center out there, no park.
Can I say something?
Gentlemen, the rules makers, excuse me, I'll let the rules makers decide that. Move on. I've been told to move on by the people who set the rules, and I respect that. I need to bring up a topic that both of you've been in the news about lately, and with respect to all in our audience, you all talk about power brokers, and there's always concern among the public that it's business as usual with power brokers who aren't elected really pulling the strings. Both of you sent letters to the New York Parole Board supporting the release of a woman whose father is political power broker Lynn Fincy. Both of you said you did so because he's your friend. So among the questions, and we'll begin with you, Mayor, you're going to support him in his bid to unseat Commissioner Keith James. What is his support race for mayor? And what do you say to taxpayers in West Palm Beach who worry about undue influence by power brokers on elected officials?
Well, first of all, no, I do not support him for commission seat, and I support Commissioner James. I have always supported incumbents, and I will continue to do that, and Commissioner James has been an excellent commissioner, and I hope you all will vote for him on March 10th. What was the rest of it?
Well, both of you sent letters to the New York Parole Board. Some questioned whether you did it because of political influence behind the scenes, and what's going on behind the scenes where you all are influenced, and why you did it, essentially.
I did it for a friend. I believe that people deserve a second chance. I believe that we have facilities here in our county that could support and help Mr. Fincy's daughter, and that's why I wrote the letter. I don't believe that I am at all susceptible to undue influences. I try to do what's best for the city, and I could go on and talk about some of the issues that my opponent has with lobbyists and friends of Kimberly, but I'm not going to do that right now.
Commissioner, response to the same question,
Well, that
please.
was a nice slide in. Here's the thing. I've known Lynn and Rita Fincy for a very long time. I wrote the letter not asking for them to free Michelle. I don't know Michelle. The parole board, when they ever look at anybody who is up for parole, they look at what are the support team that potential parolee would be going to. And so from that position, I wrote a letter on their behalf, to their integrity, to their decency. Len and Rita are honorable, honest, hardworking, and have been, and still are, a very important part of this community and the city at large. That was the vantage point that I wrote a letter, and honestly, I took it even further to say, I will help find, and I went to one of my oldest friends who's always the employer for somebody who is down on their luck and second chance or third chance, and he said, yes, I can hire her as a waitress. But I didn't do it for his support. I've always had Len's support. I want to say this though, and as it relates to undue influence, I have scads of opportunities and lots of friends of mine, and I tell them no all the time. In fact, Mayor, my brother represents Tenet up in Tallahassee. I'm sure Tenet doesn't like my position on this healthcare center, but city first. It's always been city first with me.
Let's talk about another issue about political influence, at least as some see it. And we'll begin with you, Commissioner. 8111 Dixie Highway was going to be a Walmart and a political blog in the Palm Beach Post, and a rare moment, quote, of unity between Mayor Jeri Muoio and City Commissioners. West Palm Beach last fall bought 7 acres in a $2.9 million deal that ended Walmart's chances of using the land for a neighborhood market. And it goes on to say that behind the deal for the South Dixie property was Richard Penske, a lobbyist who has ties to Muoio and a majority of the city commission. And one political pundit said he's really the most powerful man you've never heard of. Questions about why the deal was done, what's going to be done with it, and whether, once again, by the way, he is your ex-husband, Commissioner. And the question for both of you arises again, and for this audience, what kind of influence and how do you worry about the appearance of undue influence on your decisions by powerful power brokers? Commissioner, we begin with you.
Well, I've never thought of Richard as a powerful power broker. He's just well, he's my ex-husband too. So that means we didn't always see eye to eye, I think. Regardless, I do work on behalf of people that I don't like all the time. We have a lot lobbyists that come to us, it's not about them, it's about the work. I quite frankly never even knew that he had anything to do with 8111. I've never talked to him about the 8111 property. But regardless, if you ask anybody who has known me, I grew up here, and you can't take that out of me. I know a lot of people, but I tell even my very good friends no all the time when I disagree with them. I just do it in a more agreeable fashion maybe, but I still am I'm going to do the right thing regardless. And I can understand and appreciate somebody suggesting that, but I'm here to say that's never happened with me. I feel good about that. I go to sleep at night, put my head on the pillow, happy with